Hello class, we will be having a discussion with the continuation of the discussion for the chapter 2. So in the previous online discussion, we talked about the overview of the chapter 2, in which we discuss about the presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. And then for this online discussion, we will have a discussion on the specific, or I will give you an example of a research paper. And we will discuss one by one the parts that we discussed from the previous discussion. Before I will proceed to the um, formal discussion, we will have a review from our previous discussion. So again, in the presentation of data, there is a general statement and then highlight the trend range of the values and other interesting aspects, and then okay, that's only two. And then for the parts of the chapter 2, we have a brief introductory paragraph. Okay, we also have a statement presenting the table itself, and then lastly the analysis and interpretation of the findings. And we also discuss about the importance of having these principles, relationship, and generalization. And also the results need to compare and interpret in previous published works. That is why we need to cite also related literature and related studies. And we also talk about the proper arrangement of the specific problems, or the statement of the problem found in chapter 1. And also the presentation of results and discussion should follow the sequence of the SOP, or statement of the problem. Also, we discuss about the use of appropriate statistical analysis and test. And also in most cases, we need to show the results that needs to discuss in the chapter 2. And lastly, the importance, will also talks about the importance of subjective and objective discussion. Again, for the recap, subjective, it is based on your own perception, in your own experience or own observation. And then the objectives, it derives from the data or from the facts or the informations that we have or we gathered from reading different related literature and related studies. Now let's proceed to the chapter 2 with sample. So again, for the recap, the proper sequence of our chapter 2, we need to have a brief introductory paragraph. Then we need to present the table itself, and then the analysis and interpretation of the findings. So before I will present to you or show you the examples of a research paper, um, I will also discuss about the sequence with the part 3, this one. So the part 1 or the part 2 is easy and simple, but on the part 3 it is more complicated compared to the part 1 and part 2. So in part 3 there are also 3 parts. Again, in the part 3 there are also 3 parts. The first one is the presentation of the data in a paragraph form. Presentation of data in paragraph form. The second part of the part 3 is the interpretation and analysis of data. Okay, so this part should balance as our previous discussion. We need to balance the subjective and objective aspects, okay, for the part 2, interpretation and analysis of data. So it must be come from your own words and understanding. But again, before you will interpret the data, you need to read the related studies or related literature. And then the third part of the part 3 need to put a supporting studies. Okay? So the keyword here is support. Okay? So that it will back up your claims that you discuss in the part 2. Okay, on this part. So the supporting studies will back up your interpretation and analysis of the data. So now let's proceed to the actual sample of a research paper. Okay, so this is the part of the chapter 2, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of data. Okay, so this part, it is a introductory paragraph for the overall or for the entire chapter 2. Again, this is a brief introductory from the whole chapter 2. Chapter 2. And then for the chapter 2, there are different sub headings or subtopics. One of that is the demographic profile. Okay? And this is the introductory paragraph, okay, or brief introductory for the demographic profile. Okay? So this is a brief introductory that is specific on the area of demographic profile. Okay, so the brief introductory here is for the overall of the chapter 2, and this one is for the specific. Again, specific. This one is the overall. Now let's proceed. So I will just review here. Okay, first start with a brief introductory with the overall and the specific. Okay, so we are done with the part 1. Now let's proceed to the part 2. Follow it with the statement presenting the table itself. The table itself. So after the brief introductory, okay, brief introductory in the overall and brief introductory to the specific area. So the part 2 will be the presentation of the data in table itself. Okay, in table itself. Again, for the recap, we need to rearrange the items here. Okay, we will start with the highest 3.35 and we will put the lowest at the bottom part. And then we need to arrange it properly from highest to the lowest. Okay, so we are done with the part 2. So this is part 1, brief introductory in the overall and the specific. So we're done also with the part 2. We present the data in table itself. Now let's proceed to the part 3. Okay, so just erase this one. Okay, so we will proceed to the part 3, in which this is a more complicated compared to part 1 and part 2. Again, in the part 3, there are also 3 parts. In part 3, there are also 3 parts. So the first part of the part 3, presentation of data in a paragraph form. Okay, presentation of data in a paragraph form. So you will just simply state here what is presented in the table. Okay, so for example here, the subcomposite mean of 3.21 denotes agree. Okay, so this is presentation of data in a paragraph form. Okay, I think before I will proceed to the specific discussion here, I will talk about the sequence also in the interpretation. So we need to start with the subcomposite mean. Second one, the highest weighted mean. And then the third one, the lowest weighted mean. Again, the first one, sub-composite mean. Second, the highest weighted mean. The third one, the lowest weighted mean. Now let's go back to our example table here. So in your discussion, we need to start with the sub-composite mean, next the highest weighted mean, and then lastly the lowest weighted mean. Okay? Start with the sub-composite mean, next the highest weighted mean, and lastly the lowest weighted mean. Okay? So let's start with the specific sequence here. Present the data in a paragraph form, and let's start with the sub-composite mean. Okay, sub-composite mean is 3.21. So we'll just simply state the data. Okay, the sub-composite mean of 3.21 denotes agree. Okay, so this is the presentation of data in a paragraph form. Now let's proceed to the second one, interpretation and analysis of the data. Again, there must have a balance between the subjective and objective discussion, and it must be comes from your own words. Okay, so the example here, the interpretation. So you will interpret the 3.21 sub-composite mean. So this is coming from your own words. Okay, so we'll just make other color here. I will use blue, sky blue. It means that the customers strongly agree with the quality of products and services at the food park. It indicates a highly positive and satisfying experience. This level of agreement suggests that the food park has successfully met or even exceeded customer expectations regarding the offerings and overall service. Okay, so this is your interpretation with the presentation of data in a paragraph form, which is sub-composite mean of 3.21. So this um, statement underlined in color blue, it is coming from your own words. Again, it is coming from your own words. This is your analysis and interpretation of the data. What data? 3.21 of sub-composite mean. Okay. Now, after the interpretation and analysis of the data, you will have a supporting studies or supporting literature. Supporting studies or supporting literature. So after you present your data here in a paragraph form, and then you analyze and interpret the data, the third one is the support of the study. So you will support your claim in the interpretation and analysis of the data with the citation or with the sources coming from different related literature and related studies. Okay, this part, all of this. Okay, these are the statements. Okay, so you read the literature, other related literature, and other related studies that will support your claims or that will support your interpretation. Now, what's the purpose of putting or adding supporting studies? The purpose for this is to strengthen your claims. Again, this is your own interpretation. And then if you will back up it with related studies or related literature, it will strengthen your claims. Okay, so we are done with the presenting data in a paragraph form, interpretation and analysis of data, and then the third one is supporting studies. And again, we will start with the sub-composite mean, next with the highest weighted mean, and then lastly, the lowest weighted mean. Okay, so I will show you some examples here. Okay, so this one is the subcomposite mean, and then this is the second one, highest. Okay, see that highest weighted mean of 3.35, 3.35. And then the third one or the last one is the lowest weighted mean. You can see here, lowest weighted mean of 3.00, of 3.00. So you can see we start to have a analysis and interpretation with the data with a subcomposite mean. Next, the highest weighted mean, and then the third one is the lowest weighted mean. And then again, the sequence of the interpretation and analysis of the data, we will start with the presenting of data in a paragraph form. Okay, so you will just simply state based on the data on the table. And then after stating the data on the table, you will have your own interpretation. And it must have a balance between subjective and objective discussion. Okay, this must be from your own words. And then you need to back up it with the related studies or related literature to strengthen your interpretation. Okay, to strengthen your interpretation. So I think that's all for the chapter 2. So before I will end, I will make again a summary of our discussion. And expectedly that we will have an oral or question and answer activity in our face-to-face class. Okay, so you need to take some notes and remember our discussion. Again, this is not only responsibility for the editor or the leader of the group, because we will have a individual Q&A portion to make sure that not only the leader will able to grasp the knowledge or information about the research. Okay, so let's proceed with the review or summary. Again, we discuss about the chapter 2 with the sample. So what is the first part of the chapter 2? Okay, can you still recall the part 1 of our chapter 2? So you have brief introductory. First paragraph is about the overall of the chapter 2. Then the second paragraph is about the brief introductory of the specific. What do you mean by specific? Like demographic profile, and then the second part example is level of etc. The third part is the example is problems encountered of the so on and so forth. Okay, first one, brief introductory. First paragraph talks about the overall of the chapter 2. And then you have a subheadings or subtitle. And then you will have also a brief introductory. But in that case, it must be specific on that area. Example, demographic profile. Okay, that's for part 1. Now let's proceed to the part 2. You will just simply present the data in a table itself. So you will show the table after the brief introductory paragraph on the specific area. The third one is you're going to analyze and interpret the findings. Okay, and again, part of the part 3 have 3 parts also. What are the 3 parts? Presenting the data in a paragraph form or in a sentence form. It depends on your discussion. You can use sentence or in a paragraph form. So we'll just simply restate what is in the table. Okay? Because in the table, that is only a figure and that is not a discussion or in a sentence or in a paragraph form. So the first part of the part 3, you will just simply state what is shown in the table. Okay, the second part of the part 3, you're going to interpret and analyze the data. Again, it must be come from your own words, and before you will interpret, you will read some related literature and related studies. And there should have a balance between the subjective and objective discussion. And then the third part, you need to add a supporting studies. Again, the purpose of supporting studies to strengthen your claims, to strengthen your interpretation. Okay? And then in discussing about these three parts, there are also three important sequence that you are going to follow. Okay? So I will ask you a question. What is the first? That is subcomposite mean. Okay? Subcomposite mean. The second one, the highest weighted mean. Then the third one, the lowest weighted mean. So you need to follow this sequence. Again, the we anchored that sequence based on our previous discussion. What was that? We will just simply, you can see here, follow arrangement. What else? Highlight the trend, ranges of values, and other interesting aspects. And one of the most interesting aspects is the highest and the lowest weighted mean. I think that's all for the discussion with the chapter 2 with sample. So again, I also suggest that you need to look into the manuscript or research paper from the previous batches or students. Again, you can access that in our Google Classroom in the references or in the materials. You can see that there is a drive link. Okay, so you will, I will suggest that you will read, you will observe, and again, just to inform you, that is not yet 100% accurate. Some of the student did not follow also, some comments or corrections, but 90% it was perfectly done. So expect that even though you will follow or you will adapt the pattern from the previous research paper, there are still possibility that we will have some comments and suggestions during your oral defense. So I hope that you have learned from this online discussion. So if you have questions or clarifications, just comment down on the comment section of this video. Thank you, and once again, good day to all of us.